Welcome to Dialysis Unfiltered, real talk about life on dialysis, transplant, and everything in between. Each week, we share honest stories, hard truths, and helpful tips from lived experiences. Just a heads up, we're not medical professionals. Everything shared here comes from our own journeys. This means to make sure to always check with your care team or doctors for actual medical advice or treatments. So, let's grab your seats, start your sessions, and let's plug in. Hey everyone, welcome back to Dialysis Unfiltered, where we talk real about dialysis, kidney failure, and everything in between. It's July 5th, and this is episode 6, Building a Support System. Whether it's family, friends, or an online community, support can make all the difference. And tonight, we're diving deep into what real support looks like, how to ask for help, and how to protect your energy. So let's get into it. But before we start the episode, let's welcome back our co-host, Nick. Welcome back.
Thank you for having me back.
Yeah, thank you for coming. And today's segment that we're going to start off with is talking about who's in your corner. You know, um, we all know that, life gets heavy and we all like to think about who really is in our corner and not just the people who say that they care, but the ones who show up when it matters. That's what this segment is about. So let's start off by talking about the difference between supporters and spectators. Nick, I know that you've been through, a lot regarding this, and before we started the episode, you're telling me that, you might feel like this episode for today might not be your strong suit, but from what you were telling me and all these things that we discussed prior, I feel like you're perfect for this. So to kind of start off, you know, let me ask you this: have you ever been mistaken, or have you ever mistaken a spectator for a supporter? And what happened?
I'll sit here and say yes. And on more than one occasion, I feel like the longer you're in this game, the more you can weed people out and discern it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I will sit here and say in my early days, back when I was going through, high school and whatnot, um, there wasn't a lot of people that came forward and was like, "Oh, like I would love to sit here and like try
Mm-hmm.
out to sit here and give you a kidney and this and that and other." And so I just kind of came to the realization not to expect it from anybody.
Yeah.
And generally back then is my same rule now. Like if I can't be friends with you and you don't want to be friends with me, then I don't really want to hang around you,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
regardless of what you can or can't do for me. Which is kind of like a very weird way of thinking about it because everybody wants to hear and talk to everybody when they need a kidney, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
At least that's how it seems.
Yeah.
Um, However, even going through the 8 years before I got my second transplant, everybody, like doctors and nurses and everybody else, was like, "Oh, are you gonna get a living donor? Like, have you tried to push for a living donor?"
Oh God.
And I'm like, "Not really. I mean, I've nobody in my family could give me one, or was not willing to look into giving me one."
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I have a very small family. Okay, and then the few friends that I had, I only had one that stepped up to the plate, and he was like, "Well, tell me about it." I was like, "I'm not telling you anything about it. If you want to do it, you do it completely willingly on your own."
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, "Here's the number. That is all I'm giving you. From this moment forth, I'm not discussing it. It is completely on you if you can move forward or anything, because I'm not being held at like gunpoint afterwards, being like, 'You owe me your life.' Kind of. I'm not
Yeah.
a slave. It's not
No.
gonna happen." And
Exactly.
I could feel like even your best friend could give you a kidney and it disintegrates a friendship because somebody
Mm-hmm.
feels like you owe them something.
Yep.
And I go, I would rather die with our friendship than let it disintegrate and live.
Yeah. Like you don't want to have them always having that like feeling like their eyes are right behind you, always making sure that you're taking care of it or making sure that you're doing everything you're supposed to also, or something like that. Like you owe them. I mean, I guess you do owe them. They gave you life again, but I can understand where you're coming from. But I know for me, for myself, there's been like a lot of times when I was thinking about reaching out to my family and being like, hey, uh, you could sign up, get me a kidney, and all that stuff. But honestly, I got to the point where I had this mentality. where I don't know if it's toxic. Maybe you can tell me, but I felt like I didn't want to give burden to these people, my family, and then find out that they didn't want to like donate because they really don't care about me like that, you know? So I just kind of told myself, oh, they don't care. So why ask them, you know? Just, let me do my thing and,
Well,
wait
I think
on a dead,
that's
donor and stuff
yeah,
like that.
and that's also a very well, you're it's a mixture of a lot of different emotions going on. And I do think this is more of a guy thing. I will say that too.
Oh, okay.
And when I say that, because guys, they try their best to show strength
Mhm.
through the darkest of shit,
Yeah.
and they're prideful. Like generally, most guys are extremely prideful. They don't ask for help. They don't want to help. Like they'll help you all day long. They could be dying on the inside, physically, exhaustion, heat exhausted, on death's door knocking, and they'd be like, "Yeah, I'll help you. No questions asked."
Yeah.
And but they won't ask for it in return
Mhm.
because we're I guess we just have like this very giving mentality generally,
Yeah.
and because I see it all over the place, especially when you've kind of you grew up in that mentality and you sit here and see your family, like all the men in your family have that same sort of mentality. And they've gone through some crap too in their life, and they don't really ask for help. Men aren't good at asking for help in general.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna be honest with you. If they're not married before they sit here and they don't have a good partner before they sit here and go into like a circumstance such as this, it's kind of luck of the draw because like you don't always have the great family support system. You don't always have a friend support system. Like most people, when they sit here and start dialysis within, I would say 3 to 6 months, their entire friend, it'll clear out. It'll be
Oh
like a
yeah.
room full of people,
Mhm.
and family that don't want anything to do with you will clear out.
Yep.
Friends will clear out. You
Yeah.
will see your support system and just how thin it is.
Yeah, that was a harsh fucking reality for me too, being in the hospital and like sitting there. I only had out of all the family that I had, one family support group came and saw me. Out of all of them that I had around me, and that really like opened up my eyes. And then not only that, but like all my friends too. Like all the friends that I would go out with, be there to support them. Shit, I had a friend who I fucking literally when I was working with him, I would feed him every day. I would go and give him breakfast because his wife didn't, cook for him or didn't get food for him ready for in the morning. We were working 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, and his wife couldn't, make this man some breakfast. So I felt bad for the dude and I was like, this is my friend. So every day out of my own paycheck, I would go and buy him breakfast. We would go down to the little breakfast station, and I would get him like two breakfast burritos and a drink, and I'd be like, "Here you go, bro." He's like, "Don't worry about it," And I did that literally for almost a whole year. So can you imagine how much money I spent on this dude? And then when
And
I
all
got
you're
sick,
asking, yeah,
and
all you're
and
asking for is for them to show up in the hospital just to
yeah,
see you.
and this dude like never once called me, never once would check up with me after he left that job. Never heard of him. Never. I was like, God. I was like, really? I was like, okay, well, that goes to show you, how some people are. But I think that just sucks. That was something that I just,
I think I got a great story for you. I think this is the best interpretation, and I saw it at such a young age. Are you ready?
yeah.
Okay, so my parents have been divorced for almost my entire life.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I lived with my mother up until probably about 9ish years old. Then my dad got full custody of me. Um, and then there was some back and forth around the age of like 12ish, 10, 12ish, for like 6 months to a year, and then my dad got absolute, no questions asked, full custody moving forward of me.
Mm.
Okay. So with that being said, on my 13th birthday, when I was in the hospital, and I was being put on dialysis, very emotional time, a lot of high tension and whatnot. My dad turns to me, okay, And for the record, I knew how my mother was. Okay. But my father turns to me in the midst of all that was going on in the clinic room and goes, "Would you like me to call your mother and let her know what's going on?" I'm like, okay,
It's like,
wasn't even
what the
thinking of
fuck?
that today. And I sit here and I said, you know what? Yeah, I think she deserves to know what's going on too. You know,
Damn.
because that's not
I
well.
would have
Well,
been like, fuck no. It's like the
well,
fuck.
my exact words were, you know what? I said, you know what? I'm in an emotional state. You're in an emotional state. That's not actually what I said. I sat here and said, I'm in an emotional state. He's in an emotional state. I sat here and said, somebody in a more centered scenario,
Uh-huh.
kind of outside the scenario a little bit of the room in the moment,
Mm-hmm.
needed to be the answer for that question. So I sat here and said, call my grandmother, okay, his mom,
Mm-hmm.
and ask her, and whatever she says goes. Okay.
Yeah.
Need an outside source, preferably a woman in the scenario.
Mm-hmm.
So he calls grandma, and she sits here and goes, yeah, I would do that. Okay.
Huh.
And so he gets off the phone and he calls my mother. Keep in mind, I haven't seen my mother in years at this point. Okay. She worked within spitting distance of where I lived at this time, like for a while, like a couple in that couple years time. She worked within spitting distance of where I lived. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Like I could walk out to the end of the road and look where she was working at in a building.
Oh well.
She drove past the house every single day. Okay. And she never once stopped by.
Mm.
So I sit here and he called her and she's like, oh my God, you know,
Mm-hmm.
coming up there. So she comes up there and um, they put me in a room. She comes by, like we sit here and talk and whatnot. It's starting to get late, probably about 8:30 probably.
Mm-hmm.
I'm on IV fluids and stuff like that. Just kind of chilling, but like a lot of things are like settling in and like going through my mind at 13. And it was really weird for like a split second there because like my parents were actually semi getting along, at least surface level, you know?
Yeah.
Like I had never seen that before in my life. Like they were always like kind of at each other.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just bizarre. It was like a moment in time that I'll probably never see again. And um like they were kind of like joking, kidding a little bit, even though I could still feel tension. Don't get me wrong. And so she sat here and thought she was gonna spend the night, and Dad's like, "Nah, you can go home. It's 9 o'clock." so so she went home for that night, and she said she'll be back. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So the next day, I thought she might be there a little bit earlier, but no. The next day, she sit here and come in probably about 12 noonish
Mm-hmm.
with the pastor's wife.
Huh.
Okay. And
Okay.
so I'm like, okay, that's a little weird. Okay. You know, that's just strange. So, but okay. I didn't think anything else about it. And they may have stayed I'll give them benefit of the doubt. I'll say an hour.
Huh.
I do think it was less than an hour. Okay. And the pastor's wife kept like looking at her watch or her phone to sit here and see like what time it was
Uh-uh.
and whatnot. And I'm like, what are they like? What is the rush to get out of here?
It's like, damn, leave already if you don't want to be here.
Well,
God, shit.
they sit here and came, but it was a shopping trip for them.
What the fuck?
Yeah, they were. I was killing and cutting into their shopping time, and so I was like,
Get
oh,
out of
okay,
here.
well, yeah, no, like y'all can go. That's fine. Y'all can enjoy your shopping trip. So like they left, and I never seen my mother again since.
That's fucked, dude. I'm sorry you went.
That
Jeez.
was in '08. To
Damn.
put that in perspective, I
So,
have not seen my mother since.
dang. So at all, not even till this day at all. Just zero, zip,
No.
nada. Fuck, dude. So that's like the last memory you had of just her sitting in the hospital and just look, or her friend looking at the fucking phone and the watch, and that's
Yep.
fucked.
And so
Jesus.
when I sit here and say that, like, if it can get that deep on a level, for me, I'm not sitting here saying that's everybody's situation. Okay, like, but just the night and day black and white contrast between one parent versus the other, it blew my mind. And I'm like, okay, like if this is the scenario just in my own parents,
Mm-hmm.
then I have to even guard myself even further with everyone else.
No, most definitely. Shit. So this kind of makes me want to ask you too, like, why do you think some people hang around but don't actually support? Like, do you feel like they just want to kind of see how the show goes, or just see how like we either progress or get worse or something like that?
So coming from the South, okay,
Mm-hmm.
growing up in a very religious Baptist kind of community,
Yeah.
okay, I'll sit here and say that the Baptists love to gossip.
Mm.
It's the truth, okay? It's built in, um, and they just like a good piece of drama to like sink their teeth into and talk about.
That's
And so like you just implore, like you extrude drama when you're sitting here and in these scenarios.
but like
And it's
that's
just a story that continues to like pile up and whatnot.
I just feel it's so like that's like evil of somebody to just want to like sit there just and watch just to talk about the drama. You know, it's like, oh, did you hear Nick is getting worse? It's like, oh my god, what's gonna happen? It's like, what the fuck do you think is gonna happen, lady? Is like, fuck.
It's partially that, and then they want to sit here and then they'll take it and like flip it around too. Okay, because then if they hear it before somebody else will, okay, so now it's also gossip, but they can sit here and say, "Oh no, like did you hear like what's going on with such and such, and they're real bad off, and
Yeah.
we need to pray for them, and this and that and all that." Okay, if it's genuine, okay, if it's a genuine actual concern, okay. And I want
Mm-hmm.
to clarify, I grew up in a neck of the woods. It's very hard to establish whether it's genuine concern or not, or
Yeah.
gossip. Um, and when I sit here and ask something, people think I'm gossiping half the time, but
Yeah.
not sitting here saying I don't like it too. But at the same time, I'm sitting here trying to like unpack it to sit here and figure out like how can we help this person?
Mm-hmm.
Like what I'm trying to gather information to sit
Yeah.
here and like better like build like do I have an outlet for this person that might be able to benefit them, might be able to help them. I don't want to be the problem. I want to be the solution to the problem
Mm-hmm.
because I have enough problems that nobody can solve for me. I would like to solve somebody else's problem once in a while.
Yeah. I just think me personally, I probably going again to the toxicity mentality. I probably have to go talk to my therapist again about all these things, but I honestly feel like some people are just wanting to see what happens because they're the ops. They're the people who don't like you and they just want to see your world turn into bigger shit just so they can feel better about themselves. Or they're the type of people that just like to see somebody who's going through something and be like, "Man, I'm glad I'm not like them," or "I'm glad I don't have their illness," just to make themselves feel better. You know what I'm talking about?
I completely agree with that, but those are the same people that sit here and have the pretty houses on the outside,
But the
but it's an
chaos,
ugly
yeah,
shit life on the inside.
yep. Which
And they also don't know how good they have it,
mm-hmm,
yet they continue to complain and bitch.
yep,
And when I say that, like I sit here and I was talking to a guy the other day at the gym, and he was like, "Hey man, how old are you?" And I was like, and he was like older in age. Don't get me wrong, he's much older than I am. And I was like, "Yeah, I'm 31." And he was like, "I'm living the life, man." He was like, "I got married at like I think it was like 26 or 28 or something like that." And I'm like, I was like, I'm sitting here over here at 31 thinking like, okay, like as long as you're like happy and like you love your significant other, I don't care when you got married. Okay. As long as you can work it out and whatnot, there's not a problem with that. I'm like, he was like, nah, I'm like, man, you got it made. I'm like, no, the fuck I don't. You don't even know the half of it. you're sitting here saying I got it made. Like he was like, yeah, you're rolling in cash. I'm like, and it blows my mind because you have no clue what these people are walking through.
Mhm.
And I'm like, as somebody who, like started out this crap at birth, like I have a completely different perspective. Like I'm like, I would kill for normal. Like
Mhm.
the wife, the kids, the happy family, the fully functional health, the like semi financially stability, like a house. It ain't gotta be big. It's
Yeah.
gotta be a house with a like freaking roof and walls, not a shelter. And I'm like, you have no clue like what you're talking about and who you're talking about about these things.
Yeah. So I know earlier when we were talking about like how people probably just hang around and don't support. Let me ask you this too. Do you think there's people that they think they're actually helping, but they're just like spectating? Like how you mentioned that, there's people that like to gossip because they just want to either think about the whole situation or, how to help in the end game, but they eventually don't ever do anything because they were just spectating the whole time.
100%. I mean, I see her did a whole public speaking paper on this my very first semester at community college. It was trying to think of it was a persuasion speech paper. Okay,
Mhm.
7 pages long. I had to speak it in 5, so I cut a lot of material out. I cited myself as a source, okay, because I knew all the information from scratch anyway.
Mhm.
And I specifically, my whole driving point for this entire thing was, hey, if you can sit here and donate a kidney, give a kidney. Okay, if you feel like it's up, if you can make that happen and you can, do it. Okay. B, if you can't donate a kidney, that's fine. Completely understand. Donate blood. If you can donate blood because, a lot of people going through not even kidney problems, but across the board
Yeah,
need
everything.
blood. Like
Yep.
donate it because it'll help somebody if
Yeah,
it's not a kidney transplant patient.
100%.
And then last but not least, if you can't do either one of those, and that's fine, support somebody who's going through it. Like talk and like let everybody else know about it, specifically because they may need, be needing a transplant, whether that's a kidney or a heart, liver, pancreas, whatever it may be, lung, whatever that may be. You can at least show support by like informing others of this need. Okay.
Mhm.
Nobody can really argue with that
No, they
or
can't.
in any way, shape, or form because you're not doing anything but helping in all three of those scenarios.
Mhm.
And the thing is people there's so many people in the world that don't want to do the first one because that requires too much time and effort. And they don't want to do the second one because that requires you giving up something for free. And
Yeah.
then the third one requires you giving your time to talk to others, not about yourself, but about helping somebody else. And they don't want to do any of those because it's too much effort and too much work.
Yeah. That's true.
I think that really hits the nail on the head because after that persuasion speech, I didn't hear nobody else.
Yep.
Like
That
when I
makes
say
sense.
and say that, like nobody took any of that information and went any distance with it.
No. Like shut
They
it
all
down.
fell right back into the same cycle.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
Jeez. And also talking about something else, like do you think online spaces too are like real support for people or like how do online friendships compare to those that are like in person for you?
I That's a good question. I think online friendships are
Now we're talking about like online friendships that have helped you through this illness, not just like a normal one. Since we're on dialysis, especially regarding the Discord community, right?
yeah. Well, I mean, and that's the thing is it still comes down to discernment.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, whether it's in person with a friend or family member, or it's online with some random person. The difference is you can talk out loud to these people online and vent to an extent, and they don't know you like that. So
No.
like whether that be good or bad, um, it's kind of you're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place there. Like it could be bad, it could be good. You know, those are both scenarios in that case.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the online friendships are just one of those things. I feel it's more of an acquaintance.
Yeah. Well, for
The
me,
threshold difference though is when you start talking to these people on a regular basis
hmm
and maybe say they're close to you, like if you live in one state and they live in another state, you meet up in real life, okay? You've already had these wonderful conversations and y'all spoke out and like because like online you can be that mean asshole that everybody knows, okay? Or you can sit here and be like so open, it's unreal because and the person online may know you in a completely different light than even the people around you.
no, yeah, definitely. I think for me though, honestly, I feel like the online friendships are way better for me than actual in-person ones because now look, you can hear me out on this one. I feel the in-person friendships that I have for me personally, this is from personal experience, is that my friends in person don't have an illness, never experienced anything like I have, right? Compared to you guys that I have in dialysis Discord that know exactly what I've been through, are going through what I'm going through, and will understand me exactly 100%, right? So I feel that alone makes it feel to me that my friendships online are way better, because I know like when I'm talking to you or when I'm talking to any of the other people in the Discord, I know when I say, "Oh yeah, dialysis sucked today." You guys would be like, "Yep, true," because guess what? You went to fucking dialysis today. You were like, "Yep, today was a fucking draining day," right? Now, if I messaged one of my buddies in person or we met up and we had lunch and I was like, "Yeah, man, today was sucky at dialysis," he would just look at me like, "Uh-huh." It's like, "Well, my family today we're gonna have hot dogs in the afternoon." I'm like, "What the fuck?" He doesn't understand. He could just have empathy and be like, "Oh yeah, I understand you," but I hate that shit when they do that because they don't know how I feel, or they can't comprehend it. So it just makes it a more solid. My online friends are better than my in-person ones, for me. But
Well, I will sit here and say I have to do a lot of discerning before I even become friends with somebody
hmm
online or in person.
yeah,
Um, I will sit here and say I don't always I pick people to be my friends that push me because when I say push me, I don't want people I don't want people who do this exact same thing as me. I want people who complement what I already do.
hmm
I don't want to be friends with me. My ass sucks. I'm gonna be quite honest with you.
oh, you don't
Okay,
suck, Nick. Come on.
but I don't want. It's like a relationship. Like I don't want to be in a relationship with me.
No,
Okay, if I did, I just stay single kind of situation.
it's like God.
But but at the same time, I also we can't be completely different worlds from each other. I need complementation without replicantation. Like,
Yeah,
does that make any sense? I
yeah.
probably
No,
butchered that
I
word there.
understand. No, I understand.
Yeah, but like and that's sort of the same thing, whether it be a relationship for me or it be a friendship for me. Like I don't I like one of my best buds, actually probably my best bud. He sit here and I'm very hands-on. I like film, I like Foley, I like editing. I love it. Like I absolutely adore it. I love graphic design work, all that sort of stuff. On
hmm
the other hand, I've taught him some graphic design work. He's done magazine work. He's put out his own books. Um, and he puts out books for others, but he has a whole background over a decade as being a musical artist.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
And so he's got like I think his entire repertoire is like 100 different songs at the moment
Oh, wow.
or more. And there's no telling. I can't keep up with it. Okay. Anyway, I love music, have no care in the world to see him produce. Okay, like I don't want to touch audio with a 10-foot pole. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
could care less. But if he has a video problem, he or something graphic design related that he has questions about, he'll ask me.
Yeah.
If I have an audio problem or I need audio fixed, I'll send it to him. So we complement and fairly we overlap a little bit, but we're not the exact same person and we're not complete opposite.
Yeah. I
So
feel like that kind of goes for like any type of relationship, right? Even like how you said, even from a partner relationship or a friendship, you know,
yeah,
there has to be a little kind of mix up in between, because if you end up dating the same person with the same likes and the same, way they process things and just everything, it's just gonna be a wreck in the future, you know.
yeah, yeah. I mean, you want some of the enough similarity that way y'all can get along, but at the same time, you also want enough difference that you can push each other to grow as people.
True. Yep. 100%. I agree with that. So now, since we're talking about like online stuff, online friends, online communities, and stuff like that, do you think being anonymous helps or hurts? Support online.
A mixed bag. That's a loaded question. I would sit here and say overall, being anonymous hurts a lot. When I say that, when you don't put your face out there or like people get to really know who you are
Mm-hmm.
along beside, your thoughts and your actions,
Yeah.
there's there that friendship can only go but so far.
Mm-hmm.
And then it almost becomes like it's a cutoff because you don't really know that person that well. Like you think you do, but you
You
don't
don't. No.
because you act completely different online as you do in person.
True. I just feel like it could be like how you
Yeah,
said, it could be kind of a loaded question, because it could be a good and a bad thing. Because now I'm not saying there's people who do this, but like who would pretend to be sick just to kind of get pity or just try to help people online? Does that make sense? You'd have to be really like
yeah,
psychotic to want to do that type of things. But I think that's where kind of being anonymous online kind of hurts it, when you're trying to be,
yeah.
part of a support system online, because everybody, like, for example, let's just give like a random thing, in our community, say me, for example. I started this whole community and all this stuff, and then I, ends up becoming, or something comes out that somebody finds out, oh yeah, Fizz was never on dialysis. He has working kidneys. He just wanted to start a community for dialysis people because one day he just woke up and wanted to start one. I feel like
Mhm.
that's where being anonymous can really hurt. But at the same time, like I said, who would do that?
I mean, I feel like there's plenty of people in the world that will have and will continue to do things like that. Whether it's to like get the people to feel pity for them,
Yeah.
to like gain some sort of brownie points, whether it be to sit here. I mean, I've heard all sorts of stories.
Yeah.
Guys have done stuff like that to sit here and get a date with a girl,
Wow.
and I'm like, why? Because like the charade's gonna break at some point,
Yeah.
and then she's gonna find out the real truth, and then that's gonna disintegrate.
Mm-hmm.
9 times out of 10, if it will, and the one time it doesn't, the girl's got something mentally ill with her. So,
Now, I'm trying to think too. Is like, in being anonymous, how would it help support online? That's what I'm trying to think right now. Like, I'm the only thing that I can kind of come up with is that, if you're anonymous and you kind of like help people online, it's good, because then it kind of creates a barrier between you and them. So if like you dropped out out of fucking nowhere, they never would know who you were. You were just like an online, entity. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
What I'm trying to kind of explain.
Yeah, and I feel like there's definitely a time and place for anonymous interactions. I'm not sitting here saying there's not, because realistically, all it takes is that good Samaritan once in a while to sit down and have a conversation with you, regardless if you know each other. It could be complete strangers. It even happens on the street. And I love it. Okay. Sometimes it just takes a complete and total stranger to sit down with you and have a conversation, a deep, meaningful conversation to completely change your thought process to get you, to pull you out of the hole you've dug yourself into.
Yeah. Because who knows?
It's
Like,
awesome.
can you imagine? Can you imagine like talking? For all we know, some of the people that we talk to in the community could be like these like serial killers or somebody that works in the black market stealing kidneys, or I don't know what the hell they'll get out of us. Since all of us have broken kidneys, so it's not like they can take our kidney, right? But
It's like, oh, there's a whole community of people here that need
yeah,
kidneys. I can
that need
sell them. Oh.
right.
And we're like, rule number whatever, no solicitations. Uh, they're
I
like,
don't know. I don't know how
"Cut
they'll get.
me."
I don't know how they'll get the money because all of us are fucking broke. But
They'll probably figure out a scam to sit here and pull it out of insurance.
right. Somehow, I wouldn't put it past people because there's a lot of creative people. If there's a will, there's a way. But which leads me into something. You know, talking about like when people kind of show up, or knowing who shows up when it counts. Oh shit, my alarm for my transplant pills. Shit. um, and kind of knowing, you know, kind of like I mean, I'm trying to put it in words, but I can't really think about it. But I guess the best way I could think about it is like, has there ever been somebody that kind of surprised you by stepping up when you needed them? Just.
Yes. Yeah. 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 I was really shocked when I was going to university.
Mm-hmm.
I was a part of a Christian fellowship, and I'm sitting here thinking, I'm like, oh, like these people could care less about me. Like they just see me on a daily, on a day, like a weekly basis, sometimes almost near daily basis around campus.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, they don't know me from Adam. Like they could literally, whether I show up tomorrow or not, like I'm that kind of person. That's how standoffish I am, because I'm like, you don't know me. Like you have no clue who I am, nothing about me, and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And there was I sit here and kind of told one of the guys in the group, or it may have been somebody else, I can't remember. It may have been the leader, the pastor for the community. I sit here and sat down with him and kind of told him what was going on. I was like, hey, like this is kind of a scenario that I have going on with my hospital because of financial issues last time with transplant. I need to sit here and get help raising like 2.5 grand. And he was like, through like GoFundMe, and I was like, no. I was like, because like that at the time, I was told by the hospital that plays a really big problem with tax related issues, because it's counted as funds incoming that are positive, and they'll make the government will end up making you take those funds and like put it towards things hospital wise and insurance wise before they restart for you, because it looks like income, especially if it's in your name.
Mm-hmm.
And so I ended up going with a company called helphopelive.org. And they take like a percentage off of every donation and they put it in there. And then like yearly they sit here and like take a small amount off of whatever's in the account. But the account's set aside in your name in a nonprofit for you for any bills. And like you would send in the bills to show like what it's for and yada yada yada. And it could be for like gas or for cell phone bills. So like they could call you for transplant or anything. And you can either have them paid in advance if you have a bill in advance, or you can see and they'll send the bill, like they'll send the money directly to the bill. Or like if it's gas or something like that, then you can put in those receipts and they'll send you a check and deposit directly into your bank account. Takes a while. Okay, I'm just letting you know. It takes like 3 4 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so there's that whole situation there, and I was like, I have to do it through this because of the whole situation with that. And they were like, oh, okay. Somehow, have no clue how, was not expecting to reach my goal in any way, shape, or form.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, in less than a month, I sit here and went to like our weekly event like
Mm-hmm.
that we sit here and we're hosting in a church during COVID. And they called me to the front of the stage. I'm like, what are you gonna call me to the front of the stage for?
Mm-hmm.
And they sit here and said, we wanted to sit here and like announce to you and along with everybody else here that's a student, like we had like 100 students crammed in this building. They sit here and said, we have raised $2,500 for you.
Wow.
And it was all deposited into that account.
Wow.
And I was like, wow, okay. And I just kind of broke down on stage. I ain't gonna sit here and lie. So,
I mean, I would too. Shit, I don't blame you. Fuck.
and so it just kind of like blew my mind that this was such a big priority to them that they ask like students, any students that sit here and come forth and put towards it. They literally reach out to their donors, and their donors supported, and uh, their like whole team, like they sit here and came to me and was like, hey, like we'll film you a YouTube video because like our donors like want to meet you and know who you are and that sort of stuff. And so like they we filmed the whole video and put it online, and like really pushed for a support thing. And I was like, this never goes anywhere. Like that's exactly what I was thinking when we first started. I was like, this never goes anywhere. This is not gonna do yada yada yada. And I was just mind blown in like a month, which I want to clarify, seems like not that long of a time, but also sounds like a really long time. And they, met my goal in that amount of time. And it was just mind blowing to me because I'm like, how can you sit here and ask people online, people you've never met before, to donate to somebody for something like this?
Yeah.
And people willingly donate 2.5 grand. Just mind blowing.
No, yeah, it's. I mean, there's some people out there. I mean, they're definitely miracles or blessings in disguise. That are willing to do stuff like that for people like us.
Yeah.
Which I want to talk about something too. Like I want to actually leading into our second segment, the importance of emotional safety, because emotional safety means being able to share your truths without fear of judgment or it being quote unquote fixed. So I kind of want to talk about what it really means to feel safe around somebody. And the first talking point would be listening versus trying to fix something. You know, and how some people by default try to fix stuff without just kind of like listening to us at first. They just like the
Mhm.
first reaction for them is like, how can I help somebody, or how can I fix this, and not just
Yeah.
be like, hey, hear me out. I'm not asking you to fix it, I just want you to listen. But have you ever felt like that sometimes?
Felt like that, done that to others. Like, because I'm very critical thinking based. So like I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, there's a problem, let's fix it. So I completely understand this from the other perspective too. I'm not good with just sitting and like not trying to fix the problem. And so like that's something I have been working
Mm.
on. And it's a hard battle. I'm not gonna sit here and lie to you.
No, I mean it is because I'm kind of the same way. I'm always trying to like, especially in the community, I'm always trying to give people advice. I'm always trying to quote unquote fix stuff. But I guess it's a little harder online to understand the tone of what how a person is by the way that they're just typing, away in chat.
Hmm.
But I feel like we should definitely make a channel now that I think about it. Where well, I guess that's where the venting channel is for. Where people go and they just want
Yeah.
to vent. So I guess we already do have that. But sometimes reading those chats and vent, it makes me want to like. I know I've been told sometimes where I can be kind of aggressive to kind of helping somebody fix an issue, which I've been doing better now. Kind of letting the people do vent in the vent channel and let them kind of let off some steam. But I guess I'm trying to think of how or why I do that. But go ahead, continue on what you were talking about.
So it's because like you may see how you can fix it, and the other person maybe doesn't want to fix it.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And it takes a true friend to like really understand, like, you don't want it fixed. You just want them to sit in the fire with you. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true.
You don't have to make me feel better. You also don't have to make me feel worse. But sometimes it just means to like come and like be like, you know what? Let's do this shit together. It's gonna suck ass, but let's do it together.
No, I don't think it makes me want to ask, like, how do you respond to something like that, though? Like, now that I'm thinking about it, like when somebody kind of just jumps into problem solving mode, how do you react to that, or how do you respond to it?
Oh, I let them dig their own grave.
Because I
I'm
feel
sitting here
kind
like, your problems are so easy to solve. I'm like, oh, okay, really? I'm gonna give you a problem, and I'll give them a
of
scenario.
uh huh.
And the scenario takes me about 15 to 30 minutes to like set it all up for them,
Uh-huh.
and then they start trying to like poke holes in it, and I start answering their whole poke like instantly,
Mm-hmm.
and they get to a point after about 45 minutes to an hour of this conversation happening. They're like, I don't know. And I'm like, see, there you go. That's all I need you to know. I was like,
I
you
want
understand where I'm at? Because
It's
I
like I
don't know
wanted
how
you.
to fix it either.
I, I just wanted you to listen, so now you listened for 30 minutes, and now we're back to stage one.
Finally, you try to fix it, okay, after 30 minutes of me blurting out what it is,
Uh
okay?
huh.
I appreciate you. I'm like, don't get me wrong. I appreciate you trying to fix it, okay? I've literally told you exactly how I tried to fix all those exact same things. You were like, oh, look, we'll do this instead. Well, I tried it by
Yep.
doing this, this, and this. And then they'll come up with something else. Have you tried this? I've done that, that, and that. And then we're like, oh, okay. Have you done this? And I've this, and this. And they'll just keep going down the pipeline until they run out of things to do. And then they'll be like, well, fuck. I'm like, yeah, exactly.
I guess it kind of, now that I think about it, it might be kind of annoying, to be honest, to have somebody to just automatically jumps into trying to give you solutions to your problems when you're trying to like explain to them your issue, and you want somebody to listen instead of just automatically giving you suggestions. So I
Yeah.
see how that can be very annoying. But have you ever had a time where you wish somebody would just like be quiet and just sit with you and discuss things instead of them just kind of like being there like, oh, okay, well, you got to do this, you got to do that, you got to, all these things being thrown at you, or you throwing at
Not
them and they're trying to
really.
throw right back?
Not really. And the reason why is because I use it not as an echo chamber, but as like a something to bounce thoughts off of,
Mm-hmm.
which is a very different perspective than most people. And so it's like the same thoughts that they're regurgitating, I've already thought because I already have their answers answered that they're regurgitating as their problem solving. And so they may generally not, but may hit a new thing that I hadn't thought might be out of the box. And so I'm like, oh, I hadn't thought about that. Then I'll sit here and like, I'll be like, sometimes I process it quickly, sometimes it takes me a while. It all depends on how deep the question has gone.
Mm-hmm.
And I can sit here and like either like very quickly shoot it down, or I'll be like, I hadn't thought about that. Let me sit here and see. Let me see if that functions in this scenario, and I'll test it, and I'll get back with them and be like, oh, this did work. Surprisingly, but it's very rare because I'm set in that mindset so deeply of like critical thinking, problem solving, logic based analytics. It. I'm constantly trying to solve. It's like a damn Rubik's cube in my head that I'm trying to solve.
So, what do you
Yeah.
think everything we've been talking about, like with the people kind of jumping in and starting offering problem solving, our stuff without listening, would you think that's something kind of like of a toxic positivity kind of sense, or do you feel like what would you call that?
No, I don't. I'm not gonna sit here and say it's toxic positivity because toxic positivity in my head comes from a very different perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Toxic positivity to me is somebody who sits here and hits you back with that text message or that conversation or in person. They just kind of tap you on your back and be like, "It's gonna be okay,"
Mm.
and you're like, "You have not a damn clue. Don't even say that to me."
Okay. Well, then let me ask you. Then, what's the difference between encouragement and toxic positivity?
encouragement is, to me, okay, encouragement, let's start off with toxic positivity. So toxic positivity would be more of, it's okay. You're not offering solutions, okay, to a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not sitting in the shit with me. Okay. It is a what you're saying is just a passing conversational point to get your ass out the conversation. Okay. To make yourself feel better, but it has no benefit towards the other person. Okay. Because I could sit here and go, this is gonna be okay. Okay. And
No,
I'm gonna
fuck,
be
it's
honest.
not. Stop lying.
Exactly. Exactly.
Motherfucker, you don't know.
Okay, the next step in that, okay, in the right direction is problem solving. Okay. And the
Mm-hmm.
next step beyond that is to literally sit in the shit with me. Okay. And nobody wants to take the effort most time to sit here and like problem solve. They're like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, that's not my problem. But it's gonna be okay. It's gonna be okay. And then the next step after that is, we're not even gonna problem solve this unless you're ready to problem solve it. I'm just gonna sit in this shit with you, and we're gonna sit in this shit and do this shit together.
Mm-hmm.
And that takes a real friend, okay? Like beyond tenfold. And when I sit here and say that, like my general rule is, I'm gonna sit here and try to do the problem solving step first, and then if not, we're gonna sit here and push forward to the next step. We're not going back. I'm not ever gonna be like, oh, it's okay. Nah, if you my friend and we go deep, we gonna start with problem solving because like
Mm-hmm.
I got skin in the game, you know.
Yep. No, you're
And
right.
so my rule is like I've this same friend of mine, and he'll tell you himself. Okay, I've called him after not hearing from him from like a day or two. Generally, I hear from him every day, and I've called him before after, 2 days, and I'd be like, "Hey man, what's up? Well, like, what's going on with you?" And he'd be like, "Oh, I'm okay." And I'm like, you can hear it in his voice. He ain't okay. He
Yeah.
going through some shit. And I sit him and said, "Okay, like I'll be down that way in about an hour." And he goes, "Oh, you ain't gotta. Bye. Get dressed. Take a shower. I'll be that way in an hour." Click up.
That's
And I hang up and I push forward. Okay,
yeah.
because the first step isn't talking's easy, action's hard. Okay.
Yeah.
And then the step beyond that is, okay, so like the past week or so, like I have been going through some stuff, and I called him yesterday to sit here and help me out. And he helped me problem solve a situation, but then he came with me to said situation and sat in the shit with me. Okay.
Yeah.
And not trying to offer problem solving, not trying to sit here and fix anything. Everything was kind of like calm in the moment, but it's still a shitty situation. And it's just like the presence of just being there with somebody else who understands the situation and it
Yeah.
being shitty and there's no way to get out of it. It almost builds a different layer of friendship or relationship when you can just sit in it together, and there not really be anything anybody can do. There's no way to control the situation. There's no way to problem solve your way into a better scenario or a worse scenario. It just is what it is.
Yeah. So we're talking about all this stuff right now, about all these things. What would be a better way people could show support without kind of sugarcoating things, in your opinion? Especially because, we're on dialysis and we have a chronic illness. So how would you want for all that support to be kind of given to you without it being, like I said, sugarcoated?
It would be it would be the understanding that I can't, even though I can do everything any other human being can do, I can't do it on the extremes like you can.
Mm-hmm.
And thus, it might take me more time. It might take me more energy that I don't have, time that I don't have, funding that I do not have. And if you really want to sit here and, have that person in your life and continue to see them thrive, you have to pour into them.
Mm-hmm.
And in retrospect, if they're worth anything, when the tides change, they will pour back into you.
True. I guess for me, the I always talk about this dude because he literally changed my life. But the nephrologist that literally told me, "Hey, lose weight or die," you know. So I guess for me is just be straight up and brute with it, you know.
Yeah,
But I guess a lot of people have different ways of taking things in, and for some people that might have fucked them up, but for me it worked. So I guess for me
yeah,
personally, it's just being brutal, brutal and not holding back. That's the best way for me to get support, which kind of also leads into like boundaries, because we know that support doesn't mean letting everybody have access to you all the time, and that boundaries matter, and it's not only just for protection but for peace. So I kind of want to start talking about what it means to kind of draw the line and kind of actually keep it there, because
yeah,
sometimes it can be hard, and I kind of want to discuss how to say no confidently, in certain situations, because I know sometimes you kind of have to say no when you set your boundaries just to let people know and understand that, hey, I don't need nothing past this point, and anything after that I wouldn't appreciate it. So it makes me want to ask you, do you ever remember like setting a boundary and letting somebody say, or telling them no and like really meaning it?
yeah. Um, I'm gonna let you go first though, because I can't for the life of me. I'm trying to think here and think of a specific scenario, and it's not
Well,
coming to
because
my head at the quiet moment.
is it maybe because it's like harder for you to say no, or do you think it's harder for some of us to say no? Because I know for me, I never really said no because I felt like if I didn't know the type of situation that I was in, I really couldn't set a boundary to it, if that makes sense, right? Especially being on dialysis. It's like, why am I going to set boundaries when I should be completely open to getting all the help and all the information that I can for me to kind of be able to either better myself, if that makes sense.
Okay. Well,
'Cause-
okay. So yeah, I see where you're coming from. I I don't know. I had a very different outlook on things, I guess, because people would sit here and be like, "Hey, can I help you out with this?" And be like, "No, I'm good," and I would shut it down out the gate.
Mhm.
Um, but my general rule is if I need your help bad enough, okay, it's sort of like the the little boy who cried wolf. Okay,
Mhm.
even though I'm not crying wolf all the time. Okay, like I'm not like, oh, my kidneys and oh, I'm on dialysis and this and that. I don't do that. Okay, like if I'm calling you to ask you, can you help me out? Okay, I thought you would step up to the plate to help me out. If you say no in that moment, I will never ask you again. Okay, I will move on down my list and I will find somebody else.
Mhm.
Okay, specifically because I don't ask for help. When I ask for help, I need help. That's it.
Yep.
So if I don't ask for it, I don't generally need it. But when I ask for it, there's actually a wolf there. Okay.
I feel like I kind of it's kind of weird for me to say that I've never really had to set any boundaries because honestly, I've never had anybody really besides the doctors who try to help me. I've never really had anybody outside of kind of like wanting to push those limits. So I don't know if that's fucked up because nobody really ever reached out to kind of help me like that outside of dialysis, you know. Because I've always had a
Yeah.
support system too, like I talked about.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've always had my mom, my brothers, so they've always been there. So there was never really a need for extra support outside of that. And of course my partner, but my partner was always, I've never felt like they've kind of pushed it to the point where I was like, hey, I don't need your support. Like, let me take care of this, because I was self aware that I was sick, I was ill, so I need help, right? Is like, and if I denied people that were really trying to help me, then that would kind of feel, or I would feel that would kind of fuck me up later on. But
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I wouldn't understand. I mean, now post transplant, I feel like I have, kind of let my parents or my mom more know, like sometimes she still kind of wants to help a lot, like pre transplant, and sometimes I have to kind of let her know, hey, I'm doing better now. It's like let me try to get my all my things, let me get back to myself. Like let me try to do this right. So.
Well, and then it also it's sort of like, I hate to say this because it's an absolute ludicrous thing to sit here and like compare,
Hmm.
but like it's like elderly people.
Yeah.
Okay, as soon as you sit here and put them in like a nursing home or something, and like their routine, their ability to do for themselves, and all these other sorts of things are taken away from them,
Hmm.
they start shriveling up and dying because they did it for themselves so long, and they don't get to exercise and do the muscle movements, and they don't have something to look forward to and people to talk to. They don't have hope. And so when you basically cut somebody's arms and legs off and don't allow them to do their own thing and be their own human being, yes, we're sick. I'm not sitting here saying that. Same thing with elderly people. Yes, they're sick. I get that. Okay, you know they have problems just like we do. But when you start making it where they're unempowered to do anything, you become a shriveled up shell of your former self and you die. There is no growth in that.
No, you're right. And I know this is something else we wanted to talk about, the red flags that we see in supportive people. I know we were talking about that before we started the episode tonight, and you were talking about how you kind of saw some red flags in some supportive people that you had in the past. So I don't know if you want to re-explain that or that thought process again.
Well, I mean, it it's not just me. I mean, like even with so there was I was speaking to my old dialysis nurse this past week. I stopped by and spoke with her, and we were talking, and she specifically sit here and said that there was a patient who sit here and got um a transplant or was planning to get a transplant from a what is it called? There's I'm trying to sit here and think of like where somebody from your support system gives a kidney to somebody, and then somebody from their
The
support system gives
exchange
you a
system,
kidney.
the exchange
Yeah,
program.
the exchange system. Yeah, 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 the exchange program. Okay, so his mother had given somebody else a kidney, and
Mm-hmm.
then their support person was going to give him a kidney, and
Yeah.
he hadn't got his kidney yet, but his mother had already given her kidney away.
Yeah.
And so he sit here and like was telling the nurse earlier this week that he just like despised like his mother sitting here giving away her kidney to this other person for him to get a kidney, and wish he had never got her involved,
Well.
specifically because she almost has like this mentality now of like, I hold the puppet master strings
Yeah.
and you owe me your life. You've
Mm-hmm.
sold your soul to the devil and you're a slave to my every whim here until the end of time. And he's like, if I would have known this was going to be the case, I would have just waited for a deceased donor.
And it's funny well, it's not really funny you mentioned it, but so many people in the community that's gotten a transplant from like live donors always mention this, what you're talking about, of how they feel so guilty about things, you know, they do or don't do with the transplant that they got from a live donor. I know
Yeah.
there was an individual talking about how they got a transplant from a family member, a close family member of theirs, and it lasted 10 years, 12 years, something like that. And now, 10, 12 years later, they're getting on them, telling them, is like, oh, did you take good care of it? Because I was told it was going to last you 15 to 25 years because it was a live donor. Yours only lasted 12. And I was like,
A guilt
what the
trip.
fuck? The guilt trip? I'm like,
Yeah,
yeah. I'm like, what the fuck?
and
It's like, how do you
that's what I
how do
don't
you
get.
like how do you say that to somebody, that you gave life or gave them an opportunity to get off a machine and live their life again? Is like, oh, did you do everything that you were supposed to do? So it kind of makes me think that, what you're saying is like sometimes I think it's kind of better to not get a fucking donor from somebody that, or get a kidney from a donor that's alive, you know, because
And that's
jeez.
it's such a double-edged sword because I'm not sitting here saying that's the case for every live donor.
Hmm.
But it affects relationships on a different level
Yeah.
beyond belief. Friendships, everything. And it's despicable because like I've heard so many bad stories that like it just turns me off from the whole process of it.
Hmm.
And it because it really comes down to this whole, well, like you were saying, like you didn't do what you were supposed to do, and I'm like, it doesn't matter. Like your kidney doesn't have a clock on it for an expiration date,
Yep.
and like I'm not sitting here saying like some people couldn't have done better or done worse on
Oh
some
no, yeah.
things.
There's definitely some people that I've
Yeah,
heard that, I was like, what the hell? Is like how
I mean, they sit here and say it's 12 and a half years on average for a deceased donor kidney.
no.
Okay, not everybody gets 12 and a half years. Some people
No.
get a heck of a lot longer. Some people get like
Less.
it could go out at any point. You could get it
Yeah.
today and be gone
Exactly.
tomorrow. Okay,
Exactly.
nobody understands the whole process, and it's literally a guessing game. But as soon as somebody sits here and gives you a kidney, like it's just a matter of time before something else pops up because now you've taken part of their life away, and they just, I don't know, it gets under my skin to even think about it because if you were genuine in what you were doing as a donor, as a live donor, then you genuinely would, just giving a person an extra day of life,
Yep.
another day to live, should be enough.
Just for that. Yep.
Like just for that. Like to get another day, if you like, because the thought process comes down to the point of, if you could give one person another day to live their life, who would you give it to? It's only one day, and you have to give up your kidney for it. Who would it be?
No.
Because that's the real question here. Is like, would you do it out of pure generosity?
Yeah, generosity. Yep.
Yeah, sorry. Well, my brain was melting over here. It's overheating. Generosity, or are you going to sit here and like do it with like some preconceived notion that you're going to sit here and get some sort of cash back reward system at the end?
No. And I wonder what type of like
Because
red flags we could see about people that would be like that. Is there any like red flags prior that we could see? Do you think, or you can think of?
red flag, you should be able to tell. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
There should, because like when you start looking into it, you're going to sit here and be like, why? Like, why you want to give me a kidney so bad? Why do you want to give away a kidney so bad? Like, what
What's
is
the what,
your
what's the
what's the reason? Like everybody has a reason for doing something. Okay, even if it's for generosity. Okay, that's still a reason, mind you.
Yeah.
Okay,
But what
and
what
when
is
you
that
start,
generosity gonna come with? It's
yeah,
like
like what addition? It's generosity,
it's
but
not just
okay,
it's not the
yeah,
generosity. It's the what after then
yeah,
why.
yeah, it's that you can have this kidney, but scenario. It's always
especially
the
if it's
but.
if it especially if it's like coming from like a friend or like somebody outside of the family. Well, shit, even family members. You never know what they're up to. To be honest.
This is bad. I'm gonna be honest. I would sit here and say family's worse than friends.
Yeah, it's true. That's very
Because I will
true.
sit here and say, like, some friends I've had, they like, had they given you a kidney, like they whatever happened afterwards, they would have been completely fine with whatever happened. But at the same time, I've had family members that would, no. Mm-mm.
It's all
Now
just,
you owe me.
I just feel sometimes like, I feel like being chronically ill, does it feel like our problems are the same? Like, let's say for the whole family problems, right? Is it worse when you're not ill, or is it worse once you're ill? If that makes sense. Because a lot of people could be like saying, "Is like, oh, okay, well, this podcast is talking all about these support systems and all this other stuff, and all these issues, and learning how to ask for help or learning how to do all these other things. But what if I'm not ill and I want to learn how to do this? Is like, what's the difference between being healthy and asking for these things and not being healthy, or being ill and not ill?
We're asking for green flags, basically.
Well, no, I mean,
I,
like, it's just kind of a question that I just thought about right now, out of the left field. Is like, if somebody was saying, is like, well, you're talking about these issues that come with this illness that you have, but
Mhm.
can a normal person that's not ill also have the same problem and deal with it the same way, or do you feel like somebody on dialysis has like another step on top of that with dealing with the same problems?
feel like it's a deeper problem because it's between life and death.
So that would you would say that's the biggest difference of our
Yeah,
problems compared to somebody normal dealing with the same stuff.
yeah. I'm not sitting here saying people can't deal with the same or similar situation. I'm not sitting here saying somebody can't give you $500 and then hold that shit over your head.
No,
The difference is you can pay back $500.
you can
Okay,
pay back your life.
you can't give the kidney back. Okay,
Yeah, I guess you're
so
right.
so like that's the difference in the situation is like you're like once you've taken it and the surgery has happened, you're screwed because
No.
what can you give in return? You don't have another kidney if their kidney fails to give them back. They have to look for somebody completely different. How do you like how you're like kidney beats rock? What I mean, what are you gonna sit here and use the like beat kidney? Okay, like you can't.
No, no, you're right.
There's no way around that.
Yeah, I don't know. I was just thinking about all this right now when we were talking about this. Is like, because I know there's gonna be people out there that are gonna be like, well, I deal with the same thing about having a support system, or I deal with the same thing about learning how to set my boundaries. What's it any different compared to you? Why are you guys fucking talking about this? If, you know, I
I
feel
would
like
sit here and
it's
I would take that even further, sit here and say, I mean, it's not just kidney patients, like any transplant patient. I would even sit here and say to go even further
I
into
say
like,
any person that deals with the chronic
yeah,
illness period is like,
yeah,
anybody that has a chronic illness, it's like we just got handed a regular problem that we had when we were normal, quote unquote healthy, and now we got more shit stacked on top of it. And I'm like, whoa. It's like, okay, that's the way that I see it. Now, I don't know. I might be
it's
wrong because I come from the chronic illness, but it could be something we could talk about in another episode. But
definitely
yeah, also, leading to our last segment, talking about, asking for help without shame. Because I know there's been times where, some people struggle a lot with it for asking with help and kind of feeling uncomfortable or even, scared about asking for it. And, I kind of want to break it down to, you know, talk about how we can ask for help without feeling any shame. So, with the first major talking point is, kind of like how we can talk about the specific needs about the help that we're requesting, or how, if you feel that it's easier to ask in person compared to online. Do you have any thoughts about that? Do you feel like it's easier to ask in person, or do you feel like it's easier to ask like online or through a phone call or stuff like that?
very transparent and I'm very blunt. So that may not fit most personalities that listen. But I guess my thing is if I sit here and I tune you into the information that I'm providing, okay,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm letting you be known privy to that information, then that is my ask for help. Now, how you? What's the worst they can say? No.
Yeah.
I mean, realistically, here they can say some more words than just no, but realistically, if they say no, okay, I just write it off and move on. Okay, I was
Okay.
that kind of person that if I messaged you and asked for help, and then you bullshitted me, I would still find time to do it, still do it, not have you involved in it,
Mhm.
and then still show it off to the world because, and it would be 10 times better than anything you could have done with me. Okay. Because now it became a feeding point for me to show you that I didn't need your ass.
Yeah.
Which is it just added fuel to my fire, which is a very different way of like figuring that out. But I was like, if I'm asking somebody and they don't want to sit here and like help out this specific thing, it has to get done regardless.
Yeah.
And so if they never messaged me back, the answer was no. If they messaged me back, no, the answer was no.
I,
If they messaged me back, yes, and they helped me out even a little bit more than I need, like more than I had, then that was still better than me having to lift the entire load.
yeah. I honestly feel like it's better for me to ask somebody in person because I can see if they're fucking bullshitting with me or not, you know? And they could
Although
see
that
that
too.
they could see that if I'm asking for help, they can see it in my face.
Mhm.
They could hear it. I mean, not hear it because I guess you could hear it through the phone too, but they can see it and they can see your body language and all this stuff along with it instead of just hearing you, hey, or leaving them a message on their phone and be like, hey, I need some help. Can you help me? All right, talk to you later. Like you could tell somebody if they spoke like that, they might not really need it. You know, but if
Yeah, yeah,
somebody's in
yeah, yeah.
person and I'm looking at you and I'm starting to fucking bust down into fucking tears and I'm like, I need your help, they're gonna be like, oh shit, like, oh, he really does need it.
Yeah, definitely. I will say in person typically happens a lot better. The next best thing is always a phone call.
Mm.
Text messages last because it's so impersonal.
I hate text
Like,
messages when somebody wants to ask help. I can't. I don't. I can't read like they're. I don't know if they're being sarcastic. I don't know if they're being. I don't know. It's just hard to read.
and then it goes to online, and if it's a voice channel, like a voice chat versus over like a text message channel, it's much easier to sit here and distinguish tone and a couple other things. You can start reading between people, the lines and stuff a little bit better, especially once you get a little bit more decisive in it and privy to that information.
Yeah.
The more you get to know somebody, the easier it is to.
True.
Um, and so you'll just sit here and start reading between lines and whatnot, picking up on certain things and cues, and it's just 10 times easier because the more information you have on the situation, and by information that doesn't mean you telling somebody what you need. That could literally be the emotion,
Mm-hmm.
the 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 I'm trying to sit here and think of what it's called. The inflection in the voice. The all these little things that regardless of you not knowing that you're it's like portraying across to somebody,
Mm-hmm.
all these little nuanced things that everybody around you picks up on, but you yourself don't see the cues. When it goes from text messaging because it's almost absolute not there,
Mm-hmm.
can't find it, to a voice chat. Typically, you can kind of gauge something's going on a little bit based on somebody's voice and their regular tone, and then you sit here and get into um, in-person, face-to-face interactions, and then I can read you like a book because like what you're saying don't match what your tone that you're saying it in, and then your facial expressions and your body language is screaming like help me, I'm on the verge of death from dehydration,
Yeah.
are three very different levels, exact same situation.
I feel like also asking for his help kind of becomes easier as time goes by because I know for me when I first started You know, it was very hard for me to ask for help, especially because the way that I was raised. You know, I've always felt like my family has always told me is like, don't just always ask people for handouts, or don't, or we're not really handouts, but for help if you don't really need it. Like, you got to be really needing it, because whatever you need that's out there, we probably have it at home that you could, get assisted with, like, not, and I'm not meaning like physical things or anything like that, but like advice, or like my mom has always told me, she's like, before you go out there and asking your friends or people like that for advice for relationships or for finances or for work, you come ask me first. Is like, I've been through that stuff, like I know from personal experience. I could tell you, and the advice that I'm going to give you is going to be way better than whatever some person, random Joe out on the street, will give you. But
That's true.
how
Yeah.
do you feel about that? Do you feel like, were you raised in an environment, or do you think the way that how you were raised affects how you ask for support? And do you feel like it kind of gets better throughout time, like with time as it goes by?
I would say somewhat. I will say it's very fascinating who I ask different questions to get different answers. It's very unique. I I specifically I survey my group of people. So like depending on like where you stand or who you are or that sort of thing, what's your background and those sorts of things. I narrow down three candidates in my group, okay? And I decide, for instance, let me just put this in perspective. So there's no more hypothetical. So I see her was dating a girl. I needed some insight. Okay. So I specifically asked three different females that were in my circle life wise. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Um, one was much older. Like when I say older, we're talking like 65 probably at the time, who had been married, had kids, that sort of. Okay. I wanted that that wise adult grandmother input. Okay. That's what I want from a female. Okay. I wanted a motherly advice. So I see her and went to a professor that I had like a a high respect for as like a mother figure. And then I went to like a friend my own age who was you know, a female. And I got three very different perspectives on the exact same subject matter. And then I kind of blended those together
To get your final solution.
to get my final solution. So it's a very interesting way of doing things. Um, of like how to sit here and solve problems and like figure those things out. And so, but I mean, you could apply that anywhere realistically. Like
Mm-hmm.
you could come to this Discord and you could sit here and talk to some like three very different people,
Yep.
one your own age, one about a decade older than you, one in their 60s,
Yep.
and you could get completely different points. Even me and you,
Yep.
who I feel like we agree on a lot of different subjects and like how we may think, but like we have very different ways of getting there. We're
Yep.
not always on agreements. Like
Yep.
you're very HD, I'm very PD. Like clearly we don't even agree on like dialysis form.
Yep.
And so like and that I actually had to write a paper earlier today, and it was kind of like the psychology of like nature nurture, and how you were raised is like one way of doing like that definitely helps you like push forward and that matter of fact and whatnot, but then also what's around you and like the environments you grew up in, like the public school, being in a church or religious, um your friend group, your family, like like how big your family is, like how many people were around you, and cousins, and like all these other sorts of things. How open all these people are to you, how open you are to all these people. That all plays a role in like even just me and you, even though there's plenty of things that we get along on the same page, we're completely different people and like how we think and how we solve problems.
Yep. No, 100%. No, yeah. So it's always good to go out and get different perspectives from different people. So yeah, you're definitely right. Um, but now that we talked about literally everything we were talking about this for this podcast or this episode, I feel like we're gonna wrap it up and you know say our final thoughts about all this regarding it. And I feel that no matter what or who you talk to, if you need the support, it's honestly not that hard to ask for. Like there's so many different people. There's therapists, there's communities, there's friends, there's shit partners. I mean, even fucking dogs. I mean, you could talk to your own dog and you know
That's a
look for
really
it for
good,
support. You know,
really good idea right there. I'm not gonna
you're
lie.
right. But I feel like at the end of it, it's better to just ask and get over that fear than to just wallow in the the thought of not being able to get help and stuff getting worse for you, you know, if that makes
Mhm.
sense. But I don't know what you want to say. You want to say your final thoughts about all this and any final words of encouragement for the people listening?
It's as kind of I think the best thing you can think of in this present moment is all of us in this Discord are in this together. And it may be hard for you now to have these deep conversations. But if you come on to the Discord and get to know a couple of us, we will have the most deep conversations I think you've ever had in your entire life. And it's not to sit here and like fix all your problems, because I'm gonna be honest, I don't think we can fix all your problems.
But just kind
But
of like knowing that people like you are out there is, I guess, is what you're trying to say. Is like you're not alone,
yeah,
you know?
you're definitely not alone in this in any way, shape, or form. There's people that have been in your situation before, if not in your situation exactly, worst than
No,
your
yeah.
situation.
Oh yeah, most
And
definitely.
because like I've always been told, like, somebody always has it worse off than you do.
Mm-hmm.
And but there's people here who have navigated it, who have built on that rocky foundation and cemented it in later on, and still have something to stand on.
Yep. And who can help you too? Can give you the
Yeah,
advice on how to get there. That's the biggest thing.
and we may not know all the answers to everything.
No.
I'll be honest with you, I
Yeah,
don't always have all the answer.
but we'll try if you want the help too. You know, if you like how we talked about setting your boundaries. If you want it, we'll give it to you. But if you don't, hey, you can always lurk on the Discord and just see what we're up to and talk about it or what we're talking about.
Definitely, no questions asked on that one.
Yeah. So that was it for this week. Well, we're on episode what 6? Holy shit! So next week we're gonna have episode 7, of course, and we're gonna be talking about food, fluids, and frustrations. You know, all that stuff for us on dialysis and how we deal with it, and the restriction, the cravings, and some tips that will definitely help a lot of people out. So until next week, take care of yourselves. You know, go to your dialysis treatments. Don't drink a lot of water, and you know, it'll be all right. Just take one step at a time, and you'll get there. But always remember that dialysis may filter your blood, but it doesn't filter your voice. Be your own self advocate. So, peace out. Love y'all. See you next week.
I